everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another video. As always, really appreciate the support. And as I've said in the past, like these videos are not really meant for the public and to get viewership and get leads from. It's really just to talk to my clients and keep you guys informed of what's going on in the market, what I'm seeing, reports that I'm reading, and my thoughts on things. So just allowing me to have multiple conversations at once and really keep you guys informed of the market. So appreciate all the viewership. To the video. This week's video is going to be on a report from Equifax that's reporting on mortgage delinquencies in Canada. They're highlighting really Ontario and British Columbia. So mortgage delinquencies, obviously, as you can probably imagine, are up from 2021, 2022, 2020, where we had a lot lower rates. So not a surprise that mortgage delinquencies are up. So I'm just going to be going over this report, kind of what it's signaling, what's going on. Is this really a big deal or is this really a moot point? Nothing like a US 2008 crisis where they had all the subprime mortgages and all the hysteria around that. Our mortgage delinquency rates are so low in Canada because if you've ever got a mortgage before, you know how sticky the banks are or credit unions or any lender is about lending to you. They're asking for this and this and this and this, and I want this paperwork, and no, that paperwork's not good enough, and no, we're not going to do that. So although it's annoying, that's a reason why our delinquency rates are so low. So let's get into the report, and thank you again for the support. So first, before we get into mortgage delinquency rates, let's look at delinquency rates for non-mortgages that are 90 plus days overdue. So Equifax is stating they went up from 1% in Q4 of 2022 to 1.3% in Q4 of 2023, representing a 28.9% increase. So all mortgages aside, people are incurring more debt and being delinquent on that debt, right? So even though people may have tightened their spending, or some people may have tightened their spending, others clearly haven't, and delinquency rates are going up. So maybe this is just people not being able to budget, but a 28.9% increase is quite substantial. So if we flip over to mortgage delinquencies, over the last 12 months, they saw a 52.3% increase, going from 0.09% to 0.14%. So again, extremely low. If we compare that to non-mortgage delinquency rates, that's a tenth of it. So if 1 in 100 people are delinquent on their non-mortgage debts, 1 in 1,000 are delinquent on their mortgage. So the report notes that Ontario and BC mortgage delinquency rates have been higher than the rest of Canada, which is not a surprise because house prices are higher in Ontario and BC. So mortgage delinquency rates soared by 135.2% in Ontario, 62.2% in BC. Now, I'm not going to touch on the BC market because I have no idea what's going on in BC. But Ontario, although I said before, like the mortgage delinquency rate is very low, right? 0.14%. But that rate of change is kind of alarming, especially if that continues to go on. Now, we're still historically quite low in mortgage delinquencies. I mean, we're higher than what we saw in 2019, 2020, 21, 22, because people weren't delinquent in their mortgage because you bought a house and it was up in value next month and it was up in value more next 2 months and so on, right? We never had downtrends in that market. So it'd be pretty hard to be delinquent on your mortgage because you just had an out. You know, if you couldn't pay your mortgage, you lost your job, you just sell your house, make some money, and you know, it sucks, but you made out okay. You're not delinquent on your mortgage, you're not underwater on your mortgage. So not really surprising to see these numbers. I mean, they are elevated, but it's you know, it's understandable considering the rate environment we're surrounded by. They're saying that also the financially stressed mortgage holders also are increasingly missing payments on their credit cards. So not only are they racking up mortgage debt and being delinquent on their mortgages, they're also being delinquent on their consumer debt, which, you know, maybe they can't afford their mortgage, so they're putting everything they used to put on debit cards and direct deposit or whatever on their credit cards, and they're now incurring credit card debt. But they're driven by younger people, who obviously have higher mortgage balances because they don't have a bunch of equity in their home. So these people are really getting the double whammy with being delinquent on mortgage and consumer debt. Again, touching on delinquency rates and mortgage renewal woes. The effective interest rates on consumers renewing their mortgage continue to grow in the fourth quarter. So $457 on average across Canada, we touch on Ontario and BC, $680 on average increase in your mortgage payment every month. So, if you're a high income earner, this may not be that big of a deal, but $680 is $680. It's not a small amount really. So if you don't have that left over, what are you not spending $680 on that you're now putting towards your home? And a lot of time, as this touches on in the next part of the article here, there's not money left over to pay those credit card bills. So like I touched on previously, if you're putting that extra money into your home, you can't pay for those things that you're putting on your credit card. So here is the percentage of mortgages in arrears, Canada, BC, and Ontario. So this chart, it's mortgage delinquencies is what it is, and it dates back to 2011. So as we can see, much higher mortgage delinquencies back in 2011, up to almost 0.5% in BC, 0.35% in Ontario. And since then, with a couple blips along the way, we've seen a steady decline with the exception of what happened in 2020, the pandemic, right? But mortgage delinquencies kind of spiked, and then banks said, no, that's okay. You can, defer your interest payments for 6 months with no penalty. So people weren't delinquent then, and it stopped delinquencies. And then from the pandemic, we see a steady downtrend until an increase in rates where we've seen this bit of an uptick. So although like I said before, and I said a couple times, it's still a very, very low rate. It's not the rate that is concerning, it's the rate of change that is concerning. So if that rate of change continues, you're going to see these numbers hockey stick up like that, and they're going to be back to 2011, maybe even higher, if we continue on this elevated rate environment situation we have going on. At the end of the day, with all this being said, banks are still working with their clients and customers to work out these situations, extend amortizations, so that clients are not delinquent on their mortgages, because the bank doesn't have an interest in you being delinquent on their mortgage. They don't want that, because then that's a non-performing loan on their books, and they don't like that. And they're not in the business of taking back homes, right? They want to lend on your home and have you pay them, and all is good. So although these numbers, it's not really alarming to me. The rate of change is alarming if it continues, but still, as I said at the beginning of the video, very, very low delinquency rates, especially if we compare ourselves to somewhere like the United States. So hopefully you found this video informative. Thank you again for watching, and stay tuned next week for a new video.